Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Good morning, Pam.
Good morning.
How's your dad?
He's good.
Good. I am pretty dissociated, but I'm hanging tough. And I just did 2 episodes sharing various things. I led with Fawn Freeze about. See, talking to you is making me realize that this is going to make me cry. I very often can talk about this stuff in a matter-of-fact way, but with you doing this with me, it just is.
Yeah, but this is a big one, and I anticipated this, so.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to, I thought of different ways to kind of try to keep your brain where it needs to be, but I'm going to let you lead and I will just follow you.
I didn't think I was going to have you read it, but yeah, I'm going to read it. This is from my brother. After he found out about natural born redhead. Just fucking sick. Fuck your doctor, your teacher, the candlestick maker. You were such a disappointment to your family, especially your father, who would have kicked you right in the ass had he been alive to watch you keep his wife, your mother, away from your brothers and sisters. All because of some baked bullshit narcissistic feeling you had stuck so far up your ass it's embarrassing. You take credit for your 2 great sons, who have little to do with you. You could not be in the room when our mother passed away. You squandered your own assets to bankruptcy. You margined your mother's account at the very financial brokerage you claimed to represent. Finally, but certainly not lastly, a list of other human violations. You have not paid for your mother's funeral, which you arranged and agreed to pay as an executor and health agent for your mother. If you have recently paid the blank funeral director his bill, the establishment claimed the establishment claimed you have not. You may disregard. You have never been funny. You are not a comedian. If any person in this thread gives a shit about the real redhead asshole, just drop me a DM. Following Joanne Secchi, and I embarrassed to have the same last name, claiming to have advice, you, all is such a joke, I could choke. Joanne, God has something in store for you. You were coddled by your siblings when you were young. Our mother and father fell over you, an obvious waste of time, and you want to give advice. Give me a fucking break. There it is.
You got through it. Good girl.
Well, when I read it, it makes me want to laugh, which was my first reaction when I got it. I think the crying is associated with what I shared with the audience about not wanting to further hurt my sons, myself, and just the unbelievable loyalty I still have to my 5 siblings.
Let's bring attention to the age of the person that wrote this.
74.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Wounded. Brutal.
Oh, this guy's trying to hide so much, like by deflecting it onto you. Like, how dare you tell our truth? How dare you tell, how dare you? How dare you? And it's like, well, then if you're daring, like if you have that kind of reaction, you're hiding something.
Yeah, and I remember when I was 25 and it would be 6 inches from my face and he'd be foaming at the mouth and spitting on me. And I just think about being a toddler and that level of rage. And when he raged in front of another childhood friend of mine, I was 4, she was 6. She was stymied and went home and wasn't able to tell her mother. And I, by that point, wasn't even crying about it. And I don't think my parents knew. There's no way they could have known. I was so often left in the care of my siblings, which was part of the problem, because that's how easy it was to abuse me. But where I want to go from here, and I told the audience this in the last podcast, was and you know this, I listened to Dr. Romney and a young man named Kyle Kittleson. I say young man, he was in his 30s at least, discussed the cluster B antisocial personalities in detail. And part of the reason I wanted to share with you today is it also affects your experience with your ex and having a young son trying to navigate these things as well. So here we go. And I feel like I'm floating. I know it's me. I know I'm doing this, but I feel like I'm floating doing it. And I don't feel like I should be a therapist to do this. I'm not feeling that way. I'm just, I don't know. I think I just want to dissociate and freeze. I just don't want to. Anyway, Romney talked less about labels. I made the distinction between narcissism being a cluster B diagnosis and sociopathy and psychopathy. I'm gonna struggle, Pam. Bear with me. Being like extensions of that. She said, this is something that can't be treated. Like you mentioned, this is a 74-year-old. They're very resistant to change. They don't think anything's wrong. My brother genuinely feels all that he said about me is true. And the irony is that as hard as that was to read, I think I told you I learned something, because I don't know what people are saying, and obviously I could defend everything written there and explain it to everybody. I'm not going to do that. But one of the things that was most interesting to me was learning. I always wondered how my ex spun our bankruptcy. Now I know. No. At least I learned that one. You know what I mean? At least I learned how that was spun to have people think that it was something due to I had done. I mean, I knew what was being blamed on me, but I didn't. I always would wonder, well, what's that angle? It's so obvious to me what happened and the course of events that I never could imagine how it was spun. So now I know. So that came out of it. Romney spoke to how there's something in these folks in their brain function that
do tell.
in structure in chemistry, and she feels that when you add abuse, neglect, or violence onto that, only then do the dots connect between having a propensity for something within the brain structure and chemistry, and then having your own horrific experiences that then those two things forged create an antisocial personality disorder. She also talked about how common it is. I can remember when my ex was diagnosed in 2007, my therapist at the time would say like the ratios were like 1 in 25 for narcissistic personality disorder. Ramadi was saying of the antisocial nature, it's like 1 in up to upwards of 20%, in that male, highly successful corporate arena. And not necessarily corporate. You can have your own business, but very often this personality is very successful. She actually said sociopaths are lazier.
Bingo.
Well, yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Yeah. I'm trying to use her terms, not mine. I think she may, or one of them made the analogy that a psychopath is more like a prize fighter and a sociopath is more like a bar fighter. She also talked about the genetics between father to son, which, because of genetics, is obviously women can have these antisocial disorders too, but they tend to and men can be borderline, but men tend to have more socio and psychopathy, and women tend to have more borderline, but there's crossovers. It's not totally tied to gender. One thing she said about the father to son thing, and it's what attracted to me to my ex. My ex wouldn't. I can count on one hand when I saw him rage. He was so passive and under aroused. It was like, my brain just chose someone similar condition, but the other end of the spectrum as far as being under aroused. I didn't get rage out of him until I was onto it.
Right.
I was sort of onto it the whole time, but it was normal.
Felt normal.
Right. Just like within my siblings. My siblings, there were always secrets. And I didn't understand like when those secrets would affect like other people. It would make me feel bad. Like when I was young and the guys, and they were married, and there was one particular sibling whose wife didn't want him to smoke pot. So I knew as a kid I wasn't smoking the pot with them, but I was keeping the secret. So they were smoking pot around me. Always the first to put a drink in my hand. Once I could drink. I remember them, and I'm trying not to be specific to individuals, getting me high, like for driver's ed, and stuff. So I had a very, when my ex came into the mix and would tell me stories, I just could rationalize or justify his behavior because he was either a certain age or he further indoctrinated into me what should be tolerable, or he had requirements on my income. He had requirements on my weight. And I just thought, well, okay, that's not outrageous. I thought then I could have requirements, but mine weren't like that. Mine were more like I don't want to go there. There were things that you should be able to ask of another person. And I can remember
a spouse.
Huh?
A spouse.
Yeah. Like I can't think of an example. Well, yeah, one thing I remember asking him just to build up a certain part of his body because it turned me on. So, like that. I remember that.
Right.
And he never did. But anyway.
Well, because he was perfect, remember?
I imagine, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't,
come on, man.
it's interesting the way my family insists on haunting me, but once, and I told you, my ex would still be sitting on my couch if, if, if I didn't get him out the way I got him out. But, and then he subsequently found another host in his family and became their Klingon.
Yeah.
Which at the time, and this is kind of funny, at the time I thought, oh, finally somebody else is taking care of him. He'll take care of his kids financially. And I was like, I don't know how that one was spun either, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really want to. I don't know. It's going to be interesting how I feel about this after this is over. I probably won't want to think about it or listen to it. She was asked. Romney was asked a very, very insightful question by Kyle. Kyle's like, what happens when a woman comes into your office and has the texts or has the emails? You know, like, do you believe them? And Romney was like, yeah, I do. And I do read that stuff to get a clearer picture of what's going on. And Kyle brought up, how do you know she's not full of shit? They didn't say it this way, but I'm saying it this way. Yeah. And she said, well, it's certainly possible, but very unlikely that somebody would go to the ends of the earth to create this type of scenario. And I know how far people have gone to make me look like the problem, but they're not in a therapist's office. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like it's right. Just amongst who they can influence and who, that's why I joke about it, but I'm serious. Between the two sides of the family, there's like 65 people. And, maybe 10% of them I have a relationship or a little something with. And I've stopped, I don't need people that I have in my family to stop having relationships with the others. That's not, I don't have that requirement of my kids. I don't have that requirement at all, but I do need some sort of acknowledgement that I don't want to talk about them, and I don't want to that's, as I'm saying it, it's changing though, because I made a recent decision, as you know, where one of my siblings that I thought I could have a little something with, I realized I can't, because it's not so much that they have relationships with the others, it's that they don't understand what happened to me. So when I talk about what happened to me and have my vision or my it's not even a require, but just when I talk about what happened to me, they just still can't acknowledge the abuse.
Right. Well, they can't even say, I'm sorry, that's not how I remember it, but I feel sorry, I feel sorry for you, or I feel, bad that you're having these, feelings about it, or, they can't even, like give you like an inch. Like it's all or nothing. It's like, they don't even acknowledge that you're in, pain or something. Like they just like they don't even want to acknowledge that it could have. You know what I mean? Like they don't even give you
That's that. As I'm listening to you describe that, there's a woman coming on in a few weeks who was raped by her father between the ages of 3 and 9, and her mother will still not acknowledge that. And the mother will ask her, "Why don't we have a relationship?" And the woman says, "Because you don't acknowledge my abuse." But she'll sit and have lunch with her and then move on.
Yep.
But I can't sit and have lunch with somebody because it hasn't been acknowledged. And again, these aren't my parents. I got really lucky where my parents are concerned. I hope I say that enough.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, Ramadi says she worries less about the diagnosis and just pays attention to patterns. Kyle asked her what people should look for, and she just said if things don't line up, pay attention. She again referred to white-collar psychopaths. They talked a lot about employment. I didn't even think about how this must be rampant in employment. She used the example of Bernie Madoff. I was thinking, reflecting on one of my siblings, always being very, very fascinated with multi-level marketing. And most businesses are multi-level marketing, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but I just never understood how the mentality attracts like an antisocial element. And yet I can reflect back on many experiences I had in business where I was probably rubbing up against it and just thought, again, another day in the life.
Right.
Right. What else do I want to say, Pammy? She also said that she will not tell somebody to leave this type of relationship. And I can remember, even after my ex was diagnosed, the therapist didn't tell me to leave. In fact, I thought, now that we know what this is, we can do something about it. I couldn't have been more wrong. But this is what she offered, that she tells her clients as opposed to leave. You know the history, it won't change. You know the roadmap, expect nothing. She always gives out domestic violence resources. She always asks them to cultivate some sort of community. She did say that if they were in danger, she feels differently about helping them with resources to get out of danger. And I thought, yeah, and that still means physical, though. And it's like, I don't know. I guess that's why I'm glad I'm not a therapist, because I'd be like, fucking run, don't walk. What it does to your fucking brain.
Right.
And then to go through forgiving yourself for tolerating it, let alone sitting in therapy and not being able to have the therapist say, this is the effect it can have on your brain long term. This is likely how your brain handles it. I don't know why they can't be. I mean, I do know why they can't be more it's liability. I know why they can't be, but yeah, I wish I wasn't 54 years old when I found out I had been dissociating for 50 years. Would have saved me a lot of grief. So, I hope to grow past this. I appreciate you doing this with me. Your situation is you've talked about it before. I want to give you. Do you want to say where you're at with it? Like, I mean, I can think of things I want to say, but I don't want to disclose because you're still dealing with it. You're it's still very much a part of. You're kind of at a critical juncture because may I say how old your child is, your son, and
Yeah.
he's going to be graduating from college, and he's got to make a decision about where he's going to live and where he wants to work. And what's your strategy, even though he was kept from you for a long, long time and poisoned against you, how would you advise other parents in our situation where our sons are concerned, giving them the space to figure things out, but recognizing that they have a mountain ahead of them?
Well, I mean, I just try to always, let him know that I support him and that I'm there for him. And, but then I remember when I was that age and what I was doing, it was a different time way back in the day, where, I didn't get to go to the college that I wanted to go to. I got sent to community college and quit after a semester and got a full-time job and moved out of my house at 19. And I had a full-time job in an apartment and, like I was living life. And he's just been so stunted, unfortunately, with the control over many, many years of it, all of his life, really, since he was 5, I'd say 5 or 6, that, he has no sense of self. He has no direction. He's not used to making decisions. He's not used to making decisions and having consequences and dealing with consequences because things were always controlled. So he never had an opportunity to experience a lot of things. And this is going to be, I can only give him, open arms and open ears and open mind and just try to, clap for him when he succeeds and, be there for him when he falls. Because I can't, like you and I have talked about all the times, like I can't make up for that lost time. I just can't, as much as it, subconsciously, I think, kind of, uh, forms my relationship with him now. I gotta step back. I have to step back and I have to let him experience things that, I know that are going to be painful and I know that are going to be difficult and stuff. But, I wasn't there to guide him, to learn how to deal with stuff like that. So now, I have to, like I said, just like be there when when he wants me to be there. I don't know. I totally got off track there with you.
I don't think so. I just
because you made me think of something when you were talking about the therapy and everything, and it took me right back to a place that I can't like get out of my head now. Like I'm experiencing it, like I was there again, where I was in therapy with a licensed social worker. Like that was our therapist when I was married, and my ex went into such a rage and such a physical, with this therapist knowing like what we had been through, what I had been through, like mentally, but to watch the physicality, that's when he told me to get away. And that just supports exactly what you said before. About they don't think about the mental part of it and how that's like broken people, until it gets like physical, then it's like, ooh, it's a problem. Like, ooh, you need to get away because well, damage is already done. When it gets to that point, when it gets to like the rage, like the damage is done. You can't turn that around, Just,
No,
wow,
and
that just-
I and what in the case of my brother, he would be so dissociated. Oh wow, that's it. It's happening to me too.
I'm thinking you should have let me read that thing. Because I could have put some inflection in there, but you needed to say it. You needed to say it out of your.
I've talked
thigh
to
hole.
I've talked to other trauma people. We're very matter of fact about it. That the crying wasn't over what he said.
No.
The crying is because I'm trying to do something that I know doesn't work. But
Well, on
if
some
I don't,
level, you have empathy for this person.
oh, of course. Oh, of course.
Like, and that to me is, you're a fucking hero for. Excuse me, you're a hero for that. Like, but you're not going to let somebody
but
come at you.
but empathy. There's also dark empathy. That's what trumps. Funny choice of words.
Mhm.
That's what trumps psychopathy. You get in the ring with people you can beat at their own game, and that's when you really start to examine yourself. And what other people witnessed, what I was capable, never to the extent of the evil but if somebody was coming at me with that firepower, I wasn't going down. You know how I am.
Right.
I'm just not like that anymore. And it was a very masculine part of me. In fact, maybe we'll stop and then start with this. All right, keep going. All right, he's going to stop us. Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.